Shalom YouTubers, I wanted to come with a quick video in regards to Romans 14 and the Sabbath. I'm going to jump right into it right quick. Romans 14 verse 5, one man considers one day more sacred than the other. Another man considers every day alike. Each one should be fully convinced in his own mind. He who regards one day as special does so to the Lord. He who eats meat eats to the Lord, for he gives thanks to God, and he who abstains does so to the Lord and gives thanks to God. So, a lot of people say, well, see, there you go, every day is alike to each person. Or some can view certain days as holy and some can view certain days as not. Now we have a problem. Because, jumping over real quickly to Romans chapter 7 verse 1, do you not know, brothers, for I am speaking to the men who know the law, that the law has authority over man as long as he lives. Now just paraphrasing that, the main point of that is, I am speaking to men who know the law. So, if you jump back here in Romans 14, Paul is speaking to, of course, people who know the Jewish law. What was the Jewish law? There were two chapters in Torah, Leviticus 11 and Leviticus 23. So, in Leviticus 11 defines what food is. Leviticus 23 defines the feast days. So if Paul would have basically been going against Torah and saying, well, it doesn't matter, you can honor whatever day you want to, that's not what God said. God said, I have certain feast days, I have certain days that I want you to honor as holy, and the Sabbath being one of them, part of the Ten Commandments. So when somebody jumps up and says, see, Paul was saying that we don't have to do that anymore, that every man considers each day alike. The kicker is whenever you start studying church history and you start studying Jewish history, if you go over to Luke 18:12, which is one of the things that I was looking at earlier, and it jumps out a lot more when you do the study behind it. Luke 18, starting, the whole section is 9 through 14, but the main verse is, I fast twice a week and give a tenth of all. Now, the context when you read verse 9, to some who were confident of their own righteousness and looked down on everybody else, Yeshua told this parable. It's two men. One's a tax collector and one's a Pharisee, which the Pharisee was being self-righteous and saying all these great things that he was doing. Now, the point in verse 12 is, I fast twice a week and give a tenth of all I get. Now, he fasts 2 times a week. Jump back over to Romans 14 once again. One man considers one day more sacred than the other. Another man considers every day alike. For the context, even when you read down further, it talks about eating meat or eating in regards to food. As far as what the debate was, is what days should be considered fast days, not as far as what days should still be honored as feast days. Should the Sabbath still be honored, or should we still do feast days? What food is clean, what food is not? That's not anywhere in the context here. And I know some will probably jump over here. 13, therefore let us stop passing judgment on one another. 14, as one who is in the Lord, I am fully convinced that no food is unclean in itself. Okay. Now, you have to remember, jump back once again, what is food? Leviticus 11 defines what food is. Pig is not food. Shrimp is not food. Lobster is not food. God sets out what we should eat for a reason. The Sabbath, Friday evening to Sunday evening. So, when you look at all this in context, and this is why it's also helpful to get a Bible without any commentary whatsoever, do some history, some study of the scriptures as far as without context of a commentary, because some of the commentaries that I've read I really like. They do help on certain things, but the majority of it has the main theme Christology and theology, that the law is done away with. We don't need to do that anymore. I don't agree with that whatsoever, because once again, if Paul would have been teaching against the feast days, he would have been teaching against the Moedim as far as the appointed time, Paul would have been a false prophet and he would have been stoned, because Paul is writing to people that know the law per Romans 7:1. So these men know the scriptures as probably as well as Paul did. What jumps out at me is Deuteronomy 13, verse 4. Is the Lord your God you must follow, and him you must revere. Keep his commandments and obey him. Serve him and hold fast to him. So once again we see as far as that if Paul was doing away, or that law was done away with, quote unquote, Paul would have been a false prophet. They would have stoned him. They would have listened to him. They would have turned their backs on him. So when somebody says that, oh, we don't have to, we can consider every day holy, that's not the case. God has set specific days as far as when, what are feast days? And Shabbat. So Shabbat is still in full effect. It's still a day of worship, still a day of rest, it's still a day of many things. So just food for thought. Like, comment, subscribe. Shalom.